The province of Nova Scotia made headlines in early August when Premier Tim Houston ordered a ban on hiking and outdoor activities in the forest due to the risk of wildfires. There are many who think it's perfectly appropriate in the name of public safety, but others see this as a major government control and overreach. And one of those is Canadian War veteran Jeffrey Evely, who decided to intentionally violate the ban. He joins us today from Nova Scotia. Jeffrey, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jeffrey, you have now been fined at least $28,000, right, for walking in the woods. So, maybe tell us about this ban. What was it about that made you angry enough to risk getting this huge fine?
Well, first of all, I'll say that if you act out of anger or you act out of fear, you will live to regret it. So, yeah, I was pretty angry initially, especially since this is the second time I tried to challenge this ban. I challenged it in 2023 when I submitted a judicial review on charter grounds. But the court refused to hear it, saying I didn't have standing because I was not fined. So this time when the ban came around, I knew that I had to go out and get the fine in order to have this matter reviewed in light of our charter rights in the courts. So I took a couple of days. I actually did a pretty goofy video about it when the first day of the ban came in, and had a little bit of fun with it, just to try to get in the right headspace before I went and dealt with that confrontation with the conservation officers. But I will say that it went well, and I found them to be very professional and courteous.
Okay, so you're saying that this is not the first time that Nova Scotia has done this. It happened back in 2023, you said?
Yeah, they put the ban on entering the woods in place during the 2023 Nova Scotia wildfires, while Sean Fraser was yelling at us from the floor of the House of Commons for driving our cars and not paying enough in taxes. They don't seem to be leaning into the whole climate change narrative as much as they did that time, because everybody knows now that we, in fact, have an arson problem in the province. So I think the more they talk at this point, the more they jump the shark, and the more people can see that this is totally out of order.
Okay. Now, Jeff, your lawyer, Marty Moore with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, has filed a notice for judicial review to the Supreme Court of Nova Scotia, challenging the province's sweeping travel ban and your $28,000 fine for walking in the woods. So, do you at this point know or can explain how far this ban goes in limiting the freedoms of citizens there?
Well, as far as it can possibly go, it bans us from going into the woods, and this is kind of the reason I think probably the easiest one to stand on when it comes to challenging this on charter grounds, because the government may interfere with my liberties when the benefit to the public good outweighs the price of my liberties. They need to be proportional. Whatever measures they put in place need to be proportional, and they are not. They could have put any number of measures in place before they got all the way up to banning my sneakers from the woods. They could have banned sources of ignition. They could have banned ATVs, but they went all the way to banning all people from the woods. And the other thing that is required under the charter is it must be logically connected to the goal. So banning sources of ignition would be logically connected to the goal of preventing wildfires, whereas banning my sneakers is not.
My goodness. Okay, so you've hired a lawyer to fight this fine that you purposely went out and got. So what kind of feedback are you getting from fellow Nova Scotians? Are they mad at you or are they supportive?
Online, it's a bit of a mixture. There are a few trolls, but they seem to have simmered down after the first couple of days. They make it easy for me to tell who the bad guys are and that I am one of the good guys, because they say the most nastiest, despicable things that they can possibly imagine. But in terms of the positive feedback, I mean, just on social media, my following on various platforms has definitely swelled, and the overwhelming number of comments that I'm getting on my posts and the messages that I'm receiving overwhelmingly are positive, and every day people are telling me to keep going.
Okay. I don't suppose you've seen any statistics on this. Like, is the public generally saying this is an appropriate safety measure, or are people pretty upset about this ban?
I can only give you my perception, and it seems to be that people are generally upset with this ban. I haven't seen any statistics. Somebody said that CTV put a poll up there, but apparently they took it down right away. I'm not sure. Um, but you know, I definitely wouldn't put it past them. What I can tell you is that you know, I can't seem to leave the house right now, which I haven't been doing very much because I'm doing a lot of media appearances. But when I do go out, people will come up to me and shake my hand and thank me for what I'm doing. I was only out like just a little bit the other day while I was hanging out with James O'Keefe, and and somebody actually came up to me in the restaurant and shook my hand. And the same thing happened when I went into a store. So just twice in one day, when I wasn't really out in public very much, I was already encountering people who were very grateful.
Right. We saw a lot of this sort of banning people from a movement during COVID lockdowns, and most judges seem to side with the government, saying that while, yes, constitutional freedoms were in fact violated, is it justified in order to keep the public safe?
In terms of COVID, I mean, it doesn't seem like there are any judges with a spine in this country, and I don't think that they can do their jobs. They took judicial notice during COVID, so basically, people were trying to challenge these measures in court, and judicial notice means they're just taking an expert testimony as you know, gospel essentially. But the experts they were relying on are government experts. So the citizenry is trying to challenge the government in court, and the court is saying, "Government, are you overreaching?" And the government is saying no, and then bang goes the gavel. And these spineless judges are like, "That's good enough for me. You know, I don't really want the attention anyway." Um, so yeah, I think that there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn here, and part of the reason why I'm doing a lot of this media blitz is because I want the public attention. I want the level of awareness there so that these public officials and these spineless judges at least feel scrutinized when they're writing these decisions. And hopefully that will promote better decision making.
Mhm. And now, Jeffrey, your lawyer, Marty Moore, was supposed to join us today on this interview, but what do you think will have to be done in court to convince a judge, otherwise, like in this hiking ban case? I know you can't really speak for your lawyer, but do you think it's going to be challenging?
Um, Certainly, but really the onus is on the government to prove that their measures are necessary. They may not arbitrarily interfere with my liberties. I mean, that's authoritarian. We live in a society where the guiding mantra is do as you will, but don't harm another. And we seem to have crossed the Rubicon into do as I say or else, like every authoritarian country in the world. So I think you know, if the law is applied as it is written, as the Constitution was intended, the Charter was intended to be interpreted, then I think it's a pretty slam dunk for our side, because the government hasn't even been able to produce the record yet. So they're not even able to produce the evidence that they relied upon in coming to the determination that it was absolutely necessary for them to ban us all from ever entering the woods.
Jeff, you're a war veteran and risked your life fighting for freedom in Iraq and Afghanistan. Both of those countries were dealing with major government controls and various bans. And I know, obviously, this situation is not 100% equal to those situations, but do you see some similarities that concern you?
Definitely. And I have seen this over the course of the last several years. The level of polarization, I think, is what's so troubling. And I attended the trucker convoy in 2022 with hundreds of other veterans who showed up at the War Monument. And the common sentiment seemed to be that we feel like we're in a war zone. There is this level of polarization in Canadian society that's entirely being driven by our political elites, establishment, senior bureaucrats, um, and just the level of vitriol that you encounter over, you know, minor political disagreements these days is alarming. And the kind of dehumanization that we see, where, you know, anybody who's not within your political tribe is effectively an outsider and marked for hostility. So it's getting very tribal. It's getting very polarized. These are sort of the early social harbingers of coming collapse and balkanization, and civil war. So it's quite alarming to me as a veteran.
This is interesting. We've just recently heard that there are several homeless encampments in the Nova Scotia woods, presumably with some potential fire hazards like propane or electrical heaters or even wood fires to stay warm. But the province has not shut them down or issued tickets. Have you heard this? And what message is this sending?
It's sending a message that this is entirely political. So that is obviously not logically connected to the goal of preventing wildfires, to allow homeless encampments to continue to occupy the woods and have such fires as you mentioned. Now, I don't really think that we should be out there giving homeless people a hard time. I just think that the government should follow the supreme law of the land, which is our Constitution that contains our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and actually respect the rights of the rest of us, put reasonable measures in place to mitigate the risk of wildfire, and just stop with this hysteria.
If Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are able to get away with this, do you think that other provinces could follow suit with lockdowns over most of Canada during wildfire season?
I think that we will put up with as much as I think we'll be subjected to as much as we will put up with. That seems to have been the trend over the last several years, and I think it's time that we stand on our rights. Rights need to be asserted, and it seems like right now is the time to do that.
So, Jeffrey, where do you see this battle for individual freedoms going over the next decade, and what can viewers do if they feel they want to take a stand against it?
Well, part of my hope in publishing the video of me getting the fine was to provide an example to others of how they can take action as an individual, engage in civil disobedience, and I'm trying to put the civil back in civil disobedience. So, there are plenty of processes that people can engage in on an individual basis to, drag these people into court, to engage with them through an official process, something that has teeth. I don't think they're listening when we protest anymore. So that is the kind of action that I'm trying to advocate for. Over the course of the next several years, I think we will see things start to turn. Now, it's a big ship. It doesn't turn on a dime. So it's a matter of years, not weeks or months. But I'm particularly interested in the fact that Gen Z is now polling as the most conservative generation in Canadian history, and they're just barely coming out of high school. So once they're fully aged into the electorate, I think we're going to see the pendulum swing back the other way, and we'll get back to some sense of normalcy where our elected officials respect our rights.
And Jeff, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Jeffrey Evely was fined $28,000 for taking a walk in the Nova Scotia woods.